The following podcast is a presentation of Project Entertainment Network.
Bizzong.
Bizzong.
Bizzong. Bizzong. Bizzong.
Bizzong. Bizzong. Bizzong. Bizzong. Bizzong. Bizzong.
This is Bizzong, the weird and wacky fiction podcast. With me, your host, Mr. Frank. What's up, Zongers? Welcome back to the show. As we do here on Bizzong every week, bringing you the craziest freaking writers I can find. And this week's crazy writer, well, he is supposed to be here today. I'm talking about Mr. Brian Asman, the author of I'm Not Even Supposed to Be Here Today, and two new books, one called Jailbroke, and another about to be released called Nunchuck City. Brian's been a little quiet since he first released I'm Not Even Supposed to Be Here Today, but he's coming storming the scene now here in 2021. We're going to find out all about his current release, his upcoming release, and the stuff he's got coming rapidly all behind it. A lot of big things happening for Brian Asman this year and beyond. So it's time to learn all about the mutant realms of Mr. Brian Asman's brain. Sit back, strap in, because it's time to get into the Bizzong interview of the one and only Mr. Brian Asman. Give us the gong. He's not even supposed to be here today, and yet he is. Once again, he's back on Bizzong to talk about his upcoming release and all the other stuff he's had going on since his last appearance. Let's not hesitate in welcoming back to Bizzong once again, Mr. Brian Asman. Brian, welcome back to Bizzong.
Boo! Oh, wait. Woo! Thank you, Mr. Frank. I am stoked to be here once again for, I believe, the third time. Third time's the charm, or third strike, you're out. I'm not sure what's gonna go down, but we'll see what happens tonight. Thanks for having me on again.
A pleasure always to have you on, and I'm glad that you're bringing the energy as you always do, but you just came off, like we're talking about, freshly off this bizarro Easter extravaganza that you partook with today with a bunch of other writers. Just quickly, tell us about that experience today.
Yeah, absolutely. So Max Booth III from Perpetual Motion Machine Publishing put together an event for Michael Allen Rose's new book, Jurassic Christ. That's also coming out this month from PMMP, so be sure you check that out. It's going to be freaking crazy. Jesus comes back as a dinosaur is the premise, and you know what? If you're listening to Bizzong and that premise doesn't just grab you by the hackles, then I don't know what to say. So yeah, that's going to be a real cool book, but Max put this thing together. It was like a bunch of writers doing readings for Easter. So it was me, Michael Allen Rose, John Baltusberger, Danger Slater, Jessica McHugh, Cody Goodfellow, Max. I feel like I'm forgetting one or two people. So, Andrew Hilbert. So yeah, it was a really good time. Everyone, just kind of some people read from books. Some people put together a specific kind of performance piece. Andrew recently got hired as a writer on the show Paw Patrol. And so he gave us an idea of what his, what his episode, his spec script was really like, that landed him that gig.
Wow. That's pretty cool.
So,
he
doesn't really have a gig on Paw Patrol, but.
Well, that's almost disappointing, but we can dream, can't we?
Oh, yes, indeed. Yeah. And there was, I think Max tried to eat 3 eggs at once. I might have given myself salmonella poisoning. We'll find out tomorrow, or maybe during this interview. I don't know.
Ooh, now that's good. That gives our listeners something to stay through the whole interview for, to see if you might drop dead before it's all over.
Yeah, anything can happen on Bizzong.
And so, that's awesome to hear that. Like I told you before, I kind of checked in real quick, but, my phone wasn't cooperating with me. So, to the best of your knowledge, this will be available probably to go back and stream at some point here in the near future.
Yeah, I think so. So follow, Max Booth III on Twitter at Give Me Your Teeth, or at Perpetual Motion Machine Publishing. And they should be announcing when this video will be available for people to watch and, file lawsuits, etc.
Sounds good. I will keep my eye out for it for sure. But we've got more other business to get to. The last time you joined us on Bizzong was to promote the Boinking Bizarro anthology along with Danger Slater. And I believe at the time you spoke a little bit about the release that is now out, but wasn't at the time, called Jailbroke, correct?
That's correct. Yeah. So that came out at the end of January. So Jailbroke is like a sci-fi horror comedy. Essentially, it's a little bit Alien, a little bit Futurama. It's essentially about these kind of like these workaday stiffs on a spaceship, and there's some murders that happen aboard the spaceship, and so it's just like a cook and a security officer, and they kind of have to band together to survive. But it's kind of like a really wacky, weird future, and there's a lot of weird shit going on. I don't want to. It's a hard book to talk about because there's, it's just like I don't want to spoil anything,
Right.
But if you like sci-fi, if you like comedy, check out Jailbroke. It's a good time.
It definitely sounds like a good time too. And now, as we speak, just about 4 or 5 days away, the imminent release of your latest book, Nunchuck City, is about to come out. What can you tell us about Nunchuck City?
That's right. So, I'm really excited about this one. So Nunchuck City, is maybe the most purely bizarro thing I've written at this point. But I'm calling it it's an absurdist martial arts comedy, with, sci-fi elements a little bit here and there. But, essentially it's the story of a reluctant ninja who just wants to open a drive-through fondue restaurant. And an old enemy comes to town and kidnaps the mayor. And so he's got to band together with his ex-girlfriend and a couple other very unlikely heroes to defeat the villain, rescue the mayor, and get his business license signed so he can open a drive-through fondue restaurant.
I absolutely love that concept. Where does that even come from? Where do you draw upon to come up with that sort of storyline?
Oh, that's a great question. So I like to joke that this book is a unlicensed adaptation of the 1987 Data East video game Bad Dudes versus Dragon Ninja, and I'm not even really joking. So I don't know if you ever played Bad Dudes growing up, Mr. Frank, but it's kind of a side-scrolling brawler, kind of like Double Dragon.
Yeah, and
essentially it's about these two guys in like tank tops and like white jeans with like fingerless gloves. And they have to fight all these ninjas to rescue, quote unquote, President Ronnie, who's been kidnapped by the Dragon Ninja clan. And so it's it's a fun game. I actually have an arcade cabinet of it in my garage.
Wow.
It's kind of fun for checking out and just beating the hell out of a bunch of ninjas. But something about like the 80s, the 80s video game aesthetic, like, these are all games that I grew up playing. But the thing that really interested me the most was this kind of cultural conversation that was going on in the 80s, where, we had action movies that were influenced by like Hong Kong cinema and Japanese cinema, and then we were influencing them back. And then when the Japanese video game designers got into the mix, they were doing this weird interpretation of the American culture that was almost a reflection of their, in parts of like kung fu cinema and stuff like that. And, it's just this weird amalgam of stuff. It's kind of unique. And so I wanted to give the flavor of these weird, late 80s video games that influenced me a lot as a kid that I had so much fun playing. So that's one of the big one of the big things that influenced the book. And the other thing was just kind of like dumb action movies like American Ninja and American Ninja 2 and American Ninja 3.
I was just looking up some screen caps real quick from Bad Dudes, and there's one particular fight scene happening on top of a semi truck that's definitely bringing back some memories that I must have played this game at some point in time. Because just looking at the screen caps of some of the gameplay, it definitely looks familiar to me, even though if I can't remember the plots necessarily. And surely the logo of Bad Dudes, I remember that.
Yeah. So I feel like people like of our kind of age range, this is, a game that we probably encountered or played or just walked by in the arcade or something like that,
Yeah.
at one point or another. And, Double Dragon was another big influence on me as well. Both the video game, which I played the shit out of Double Dragon when I was a kid. I love that stupid game. And especially Double Dragon 2, when you could like do the jump knee attack. Like that was really awesome.
Yeah. I definitely remember those days. Those were good times when there were a lot less worries that you had.
Yeah.
Being a person of that age and just plunking quarters into a video game.
Yeah, and that's kind of the feeling that I wanted to recapture with this book in a way. Is just like, hey, you're like 12, 10, 13, whatever, and you've got a pocket full of quarters, and you just wandered into Pizza Hut or something like that, and it's like, it smells like spilled beer that you're not old enough to drink, and there's like, steaming hot pizza pies coming out, and you've got like that one arcade cabinet in the dusty corner that you're just pumping quarters into and like diving into this world where you can like, you can kick ass and you can, you can save the day and become greater than yourself, and a lot of this is, that's what this is about, is just kind of becoming a more exaggerated, larger than life version of yourself.
That's really cool. Just as an aside, when you were talking about that, like nostalgia or the video games, I don't know about you, but a video game cabinet never really seems truly sort of ancient or old to me unless it's got that, that cigarette burn where people would set their cigarette down and you get that little burn.
Yeah.
Well, like if there's a whole crop of those right on the side of the joystick panel, like that's how you know that game is vintage.
Yeah, exactly. Like, oh, this is from a time when like life was completely different. Like the social mores completely different.
Yeah, like you said, in a Pizza Hut, there would be people smoking cigarettes and just resting a lit cigarette on a plastic game console.
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
That's a very nostalgic sort of time. So, it's interesting too that you bring up the video game aspect because, it's something that I think Bizarro in particular is always kind of finds its way back there, various titles coming out about it. And very recently, Michael Allen Rose, who you brought up earlier too, he's doing a series of sort of examinations of old video games and how they, their concepts were actually bizarro, and maybe we didn't even realize it at the time. So it does seem something that at least really Bizarro in particular likes to keep coming back to and exploring the concept in many ways of video games. Do you think that is a sort of particular Bizarro tone for themes?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I love that Michael Allen Rose is doing that because I think there's just so much great material there. But I mean, even if you look at some of the most famous video games, like, okay, so Super Mario Brothers is about a fucking plumber who like eats mushrooms and like stomps on wildlife and shit. And like sometimes he throws fireballs for no reason. And it's just, I think the thing about Bizarro that like really it always boils down to for me is just this feeling that anything can happen. Now I love Bizarro works that have like their own internal logic that's very, very well thought out. But, and in any book, there's always this feeling like anything can happen. It's kind of similar to like cartoons, and video games is just, it kind of goes right along with that. But yeah, some of the 80s video games are just so freaking strange. And it's this weird collision of like, so different cultures that were trying to like, engage with each other. But also I think technical limitations had a lot to do with it too. Just the iconography and stuff like that. I think the 8-bit video games, 16-bit video games, they had to develop their own unique art style. Mm-hmm. And I think that's one of the things that helped, kind of really make them stand out and make them so weird.
Yeah. Oh yeah, definitely. I agree with that so much that limitation. It was the necessity is the mother of invention sort of a thing. Like, okay, all we can really do is have something climb up and down ladders and run back and forth on this screen, but like, how do we actually build some sort of story around that? Like the very concept of like a Donkey Kong it's ridiculous, but
yeah,
nobody even questions it. I mean, that's sort of quintessentially Bizarro. It's some strange sort of concept, but everybody around in the world just accepts that as like normal and runs with it. And from the outside, we're reading it going, that's weird.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think those limitations, so you only had so many pixels and things like that. So you had to create characters with a handful of pixels, a handful of colors that really stood out. So like you get stuff like Qbert. Like what the fuck is a Qbert? It's so weird looking. But, it's like, hey, I'm going to throw like a bunch of pixels together into something that nobody will ever forget and maybe haunt your nightmares too,
Yeah, it's a beautiful amalgamation. So it is no wonder that Bizarro kind of keeps going back and exploring that. In a book like Nunchuck City, basically you're doing the same thing. You're I guess you're inventing your own backstory to this world that's sort of, or at least inspired by this world that existed back in an 80s video game.
Yeah, definitely. Like the story to Bad Dudes is very simple. It's just ninjas kidnap the president. And, this was me kind of being like, well, okay, so like, it would be kind of fun to live in a world where like ninja clans are just going around and like kidnapping politicians for no fucking reason or whatever. And so that was kind of the jumping off point for me where I was like, okay, like this is exciting to me because I can fill in all the background details of like who these people are. Like, why would they want to kidnap the mayor in the first place? Like, what's the fucking point? Like, is it like a ransom thing? Like, what's going on? So like, like in the book, I get to like really, flesh out all these weird off-kilter ninja inspired characters and their associates and their friends and this whole world. It's for a novella, it's actually, there's kind of a big cast in it. There's a number of different POV characters. And, the reason I did that was because typically in a lot of like, a lot of kung fu movies, a lot of like Hong Kong action movies, Japanese action movies, it's not like American movies where you have like Arnold Schwarzenegger or like Bruce Willis, like as the one guy kicking ass. Like a lot of time it's about a team of people who are trying to like accomplish a goal together. And so that's another thing I wanted to do with the book is just have like a bunch of different diverse characters that all get their time to shine and kick ass together.
That's definitely, I mean, it just sounds like so much fun in the end. And that's, specifically for like your style of writing. It's just, you're always just trying to have fun, essentially, is what you're doing with like really cool concepts.
Yeah, exactly. And I think in this book, I really think I cut loose stylistically in a way that, I haven't really, done before, haven't had a chance to do before. So that's one of the things I'm like most proud of is the energy packed into like every single sentence, I think. But we'll see what people think. We'll see if they concur.
Yeah, that's all we can do is wait and see. And, interestingly enough, I wanted to bring up that I love your sort of push for pre-orders on Nunchuck City. And as this is released, there's still time to get the pre-orders in because you've got some cool incentives for people to order Nunchuck City. First of all, if it reaches 1,000 pre-sales, you're going to get a tattoo of the cover of Nunchuck City somewhere on your body. I don't know if you've announced specifically where. And if it reaches the ultimate height of 10,000 pre-orders, you are going to legally change your middle name to Nunchuck. I love that.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. And so like, I wanted to do something different with the pre-orders just to like get people excited and, hopefully get people to take a risk and check it out, And so, so full disclosure, like I have a bunch of tattoos already. So like getting a tattoo at the cover isn't that big of a deal for me. But yeah, I was like, okay, that would be a cool one. Like I hit 1,000. That's a decent number. And then like I'll get a tattoo at the cover. And, I'm 100% serious about both these, by the way. A couple of people have asked me if I'm actually serious. I'm like, yeah, I am 100% committed. I would never dream of running a promotion like this and not following through. That would be some bullshit.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then the other one, the 10,000, like that's kind of like the holy grail of like an indie book pre-orders, as far as I can, maybe I'm dreaming too small, but yeah, with 10,000, I will legally change my middle name to Nunchuck. It's like one of those things where I'm like, I'm not really doing anything with my middle name anyway, so why the fuck not,
True. That's true. Me personally, not to, put any pressure on you, but for 10,000 pre-orders, I might consider changing my first name to Nunchuck.
Okay, you heard it here, folks. If we get to 10,000 copies of Nunchuck City pre-ordered, Mr. Frank is going to change his name to Nunchuck Frank.
That's a for sale thing. But yeah. I love that concept. Has there, it's a little, I wouldn't say it's unreasonable. Anything is possible for sure. But have you noticed at all a bump up in your pre-orders for that type of promotion?
A little bit, yeah. So I as I'm sure as like an indie writer also, every book, you try and build on, the audience that you got the last time, right? And hope that it just kind of builds and coalesces, into something bigger. And so with my last book, it was one of those things where it kind of flew under the radar a little bit. I'm just trying to figure out how the hell to promote things. So yeah, but with, I'm already seeing a big uptick in pre-orders with the new book. Am I close to 1,000? No, but we've still got time. And guess what, guys? There's still like a week left, before the book comes out. So you could just go pre-order it right now. You could pre-order, honestly, if one person pre-orders 500 copies, cool. If someone pre-orders 1,000 copies, that still counts.
It still counts, right? Yeah. It doesn't, it's not quantity it is quantity over quality, at least in pre-sales. That's all that matters. But yeah, best of luck to you, obviously, in that. And I think you're right to, we got to do something to, promote, because especially with ebooks, let's admit it. It's kind of weird to pre-order something that's really not in threat of running out of stock, come the day. It's just it's nice to have it there, when you wake up in the morning and just know that when you wake up, that book will be there, to have. So it sort of becomes like people that are, I guess, particularly fans of yours that want that benefit. But, for writers, it is kind of important to have really as many pre-orders as possible for that day of reckoning when it finally gets released. That's a huge help. So, I try to, when I can, pre-order a book. I think it's beneficial. It's like, if you're going to spend this money for the book anyway, why not just throw in for the pre-order then and help help the writer out that you've come to know and love and enjoy, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It definitely helps build buzz. And sometimes people tweet about oh yeah, I pre-ordered this. Yeah. And then other people will go grab it too. But I should note that my pre-order campaign is not just ebooks. I actually have a paperback pre-order set up on my website, brianasmanbooks.com. If you go to the merch section, you can pre-order Nunchuck City, signed copy. I personalize everything. There's also a package where you can buy Nunchuck City and my last book, Jailbroke, for a discounted price if you buy both paperbacks.
Now that is truly important, and valuable way to sell the books. And I'm assuming we're going to roll that pre-order number right into the total pre-orders to, pad the thing and get you to be Brian Nunchuck Asman.
Oh, of course. Yeah. I'm counting both, whether it's ebook or paperback, every pre-order counts.
Perfect. So that's an even bigger incentive. And of course, those physical books can run out. So you're going to want to get them. And of course, signed copies and everything, right? Too.
Yeah, absolutely. I personalize every copy, and I like to, so I got this from Clive Barker, actually. Not that I know him or anything. But one of my friends showed me a couple years ago a Clive Barker book that Barker had drawn a really cool drawing inside. He's like, yeah, Clive does this with every book that he signs. He just draws a little quick sketch inside the book. And so I kind of decided to just adopt that, right? Mm-hmm. And so with every book I sign, I draw a unique little sketch in there. With Jailbroke, I drew with every book I draw a different robot inside. I'm not a great artist or anything. It's just a little silly drawing, but it's just something unique to give the reader. Yeah. So that when you get one of my signed books, you'll have a picture in there that literally no one else on the planet has.
That's a nice little touch, a very beyond personalization that I definitely enjoy when I get some signed copies, and there's that extra little thing, whether it's a little message or, anything beyond the flat sign, right? A flat sign didn't, you can go anywhere. They don't mean a lot, but if there's a little extra touch to it, I love that. People love that shit.
Yeah, definitely, man. Like, one of the things that's really important for me, like, again, as like an indie writer is, giving people like more than their money's worth. Like, I want people to grab one of my books and be like, oh shit, this was really cool. He did X, Y, and Z. Like, he went above and beyond to, make me feel like I'm a rock star for buying this book, frankly. And so one of the other things I do is I randomly kind of throw in, like free shit with like the pre-orders from my website as well. Mm-hmm. I'll throw in like a comic book, or I'll throw in like another thing, just as a thank you for someone for like straight up just taking a chance on one of my books,
Yeah, for sure. And I've noticed, at least in the last year and beyond, we'll say pandemic, but even a little bit longer than pandemic, that a lot of writers have been having really good success just simply selling physical copies, through their website, their digital platform, anywhere, outside of Amazon. People really seem to respond and genuinely want, signed copies directly from the author. It's a personalized thing. And people too seem to just want to get the money directly to the writers, kind of work past Amazon, not pad their pocket so much. I guess, you two are kind of feeling that as well, since, you have that set up for your website.
Yeah, definitely. I want to give people I want to make it as easy as possible for people to buy my books. I want to remove like every single barrier to buying my books as much as I can, Mm-hmm. And, one of the things that pre-COVID, I'd go to like as many conventions as I could, and table at conventions, and, like sales were kind of like, uneven, like hit or miss, right? Some conventions you'd sell a bunch of books, other conventions, not as much, but I always just loved like the personal interaction and like, giving people the chance just to buy the book from me. So I wanted to set up that web store so people could do that, if they wanted to. As someone who's kind of like, I consider myself kind of a hybrid writer, in that I've traditionally published, I self-publish, and I have an agent who's trying to get me a Big 5 deal. So I want to use all of the tools at my disposal just to get stories out to people, that's why, I'm sure you've noticed on like, Twitter, Facebook, or whatever, like there's always some like, every couple weeks, like there's like some controversy boiling up where someone's like, either it's like indie writers being like, if you're traditionally published, you're a fucking idiot. Or it's like some traditionally published writer being like, oh, if you're an indie writer, you're not a real writer. I'm like, why won't you use all the venues at your disposal to get stories to fans? Because like that's what it's all about,
Yeah, it's all so silly when you think about it, but that is the definite way. I mean, like you said, the self-published, the indie published, it's not the bad word that it used to be, and there are a great deal of traditionally published writers, big 5 published writers that are putting out their own books, self-publishing too, to take that in. So it's crazy that still becomes, a discussion. It constantly boils up several times a year, like you said, on social media. And it's perplexing because in this day and age, like you said, why not take advantage of every opportunity there is? Because the business has changed so much from back in those, you can only get published through, the big 5 sort of publishers, or, be a mid-lister at worst.
Right. Yeah. And it's such a positive, development, what's been happening over the last 10, 15 years with the kind of, the legitimization of self-publishing. Some of the best books I've read over the last few years have been self-published books. The book Young Slasher, unfortunately I can't remember the author's name right now, but Young Slasher is a phenomenal slasher story. And the writer Luke Smitherd, also does some really cool stuff, How to Be a Vigilante was a super fun and very dark, superhero book, that he self-published. It's just, one of those things where it's like self-publishing I find it great because it gives you total control and it removes the barriers.
Mhm.
You can publish on your own time. You can decide what kind of cover you want. You can make formatting decisions, marketing decisions. Like, you have the power, and, you also get to keep the money.
Yeah, it's a very attractive model, for sure. And I'm glad you brought it up because, circle back to, I'm not even supposed to be here today, released, early 2019. And for all intents and purposes, you've actually been sort of publishing wise quiet for, the better part of a year plus. And now all of a sudden you've got these two new books out, Jailbroke and Nunchuck City. And of course you helped put together the Breaking Bizarro, late last year. But the interesting thing is I guess this is a 2-part question, was one, even though you weren't very active through that big span of time, you were still like, I still saw you like promoting. I'm not even supposed to be here, through all of 2020, all of 2019. You never like went away out of people's consciousness. You remained there, even though there wasn't stuff out. And I guess the B part to that question would be, why all of a sudden you now have 2 releases like bang, bang within 3 months of each other?
Okay. Those are really great questions, actually. And so the one question kind of answers the other.
Okay.
Frankly. So I did, Nadia and Supposed to Be Here Today with the Razorhead Press. Who are just fantastic people, so that came out in 2019. And then I had a bunch of stuff in the works at that point, essentially. And I don't want to get too much into the, pulling open the door of the sausage factory or anything like that. But so during that time, the weird thing is, as a writer, it's like, if you're not releasing things, like, it looks like you're being quiet, right? Because readers can't see the work that you're doing behind the scenes to get stuff written, get stuff edited, get stuff out there.
Yeah.
That's just what, the nature of the game, and that's one of the things why I try to be very like open on Twitter about like what I'm doing and stuff like that, just so like I can like pull back the curtain a little bit. But yeah, so essentially, like, what happened from there was like, I had a novel that I had sold, and unfortunately some stuff happened, COVID related, and that novel got canceled. And I also had, another novel, or 2 novels actually, that had been picked up by my agent, who was shopping them around. So I was in this kind of weird, like, in between space where I have all the stuff that's written, all the stuff that's kind of like in process, but not going anywhere, right?
Yeah.
It's just the nature of the game, man. You're a writer. You know what happens, sometimes. And I just went, you know what? Like, I've never really thought about self-publishing, but I have all the stuff I'm writing, and I'm very like competitive with myself as well. So I create a challenge for myself, essentially. I'm like, okay, in 2021, I'm going to release 4 books. So I've got 2 out so far, 2 to go. But I wanted to do 4 novellas in 4 different genres. So the first was obviously Jailbroke, like sci-fi horror comedy. Nunchuck City is bizarro martial arts. And then July, I'm releasing a book called Comic-Cons, which is essentially like a nerdy heist novel. And then in October, I'm releasing a haunted house book called Man, Fuck This House.
I love that.
So thank you. So yeah, it was one of those things where it's like, I was just kind of going, you know what? Like, so I've written all these books, and I can like pay some money to like have Max Booth, who's my editor on these, edit a book for me. I could drop a few dollars to Matthew Revert, who can, do the covers. I can throw some money at Laurie Michelle, who does my interiors. I can just do all these things. I can put a book together. Why don't I just do that? And why don't I drop one like every 3 months or so?
Yeah.
Cause ultimately at the end of the day, like I'm one of those writers where like, my pace of writing has kind of outpaced like, my ability to, kind of score deals essentially. So I'm just like, you know what? let's take it right to the fans, man.
I definitely like the sort of whole, I guess you you've labeled it mutated media as sort of your little self-publishing press, essentially, I guess is what's going on there.
Yep.
And you've crafted this look, like, Jailbroke and Nunchuck City are each individual unique titles, but they have this sort of unified look to them to give you a brand is it seems what it does. And I appreciate that too, because that's the sort of thing I've been crafting with my own, self-published work too. I've been trying to, even though everything's standalone unique releases, I've been trying to give them all a look so that when you look at a cover of my book, you pretty much know immediately, oh, that looks like one of them Frank Edler books. And it looks like you're going in that exact direction. Is that the intent?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And, dude, you have definitely done that with, Scatterbrain, Death in Toledo, stuff like that. You've got the cover's a different color, but you've got this strong central image with kind of a similar aesthetic,
Yeah.
And that's kind of what I wanted to do with these books was, to go, okay, I want, 4 books that they're all different genres, like different styles, things like that, but they're all going to look, like they make sense on a convention table together. That's why I wanted to do, just create a brand, create an aesthetic. So Matthew's really done all the heavy lifting on that, as far as crafting, what these books are going to look like, and giving me that kind of consistency across books. But yeah, that's, essentially what I'm trying to do with Mutated Media, which is the label I created to, cause one of the problems with self-publishing, man, I'm sure you'll agree, is just the legitimacy of it in people's eyes, right? Even though it's much improved, there's a little bit of a legitimacy problem still. And so by creating a label, I have kind of plans for the future for this label, where, eventually it'll kind of expand out a little bit. So it becomes more of a collective than just me. It becomes kind of a mark of quality, or at least I suppose that's if you think my books are quality at all and not utter dog shit. But, yeah, it's kind of a way to kind of just create an aesthetic across multiple releases. And, one of the other things I'm doing to that point, is in every book, from Nunchuck City on, I'm having a backup story in the book by a different writer.
Yeah.
So in Nunchuck City, Lucas Mangum contributed a story called Curse of the Ninja, which is a mashup of ninjas and Catholicism. And I guarantee you have never read anything like this before, because I sure haven't. And that's one of those things I'm trying to do, again, as an indie writer, doing that cross promotion, so if someone's a fan of Lucas, maybe they'll check out my book. If someone's a fan of me, maybe they'll read Lucas's story and then go get Gods of the Dark Web or Saint Sadist or something like that.
Yeah. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I seem to recall when I, last interviewed Lucas that he mentioned this and that it was a crossover thing. Do you also have a short story somewhere in one of his books?
We not yet, but yeah, Lucas and I are actually kind of working together a little bit. So he has his, I don't know if I'm saying too much right now, but he has kind of an imprint, kind of that he's going to be working under. And we're kind of joining forces a little bit, to, as indie writers to help push each other, market each other, things like that. We're just kind of both sitting around and, we had a lot, we were talking, we realized we had a lot of the same, a lot of the same goals and a lot of the same kind of roadblocks in our way, frankly. So we're how can we work together to remove some of these roadblocks to getting books out,
Yeah. I mean, I love that. I love that concept. It's something we really don't see at all, outside of maybe, some sort of story collective or something like that, but just sort of throwing a short story in, the end of my book, and then I'll do something in one of your books. And like you said, just sort of, oh, somebody picks up your book and that Mangum story is pretty cool, I better check it out, and vice versa. That makes all the sense in the world. And yet, I'm not really seeing that much at all, if ever, except that, now you're pulling off. I think that's a pretty important thing.
Yeah. Thank you. I was actually kind of inspired by, Grindhouse Press. They did Horrorama last year.
Yeah.
Which is just like, 3, I don't know, novelettes kind of, from Lucas was one of the contributors and a couple other people. And I'm like, okay, well, that's really cool that like, they have 3 kind of like a little bit like, longer than short stories. So it's like a mini anthology. And that got me thinking, okay, like if I'm self-releasing novellas, like why not tag one of my friends in and be like, hey, can you do a story on a similar topic? And, just kind of, build some buzz that way, but yeah, the fact that you're like, yeah, I haven't really seen anyone else do that. I'm like, that's awesome because that's kind of the point.
Yeah, that's a really cool idea. I dig that a lot. And I guess, if we start seeing more and more people doing that, you'll know for sure that you really, landed on a cool idea for there. You might actually see that, more and more often. So you're the vanguard there, hopefully too.
Yeah, and I would love that too. Honestly, if someone takes an idea and runs with it, that means it's a good idea.
Yes.
So, ultimately, this is a small scene in some ways, and I think it's really important that we all support each other. And there have been so many people who have given me different opportunities, and like just today, like for example, with the Bizarro Easter egg thing, where like Max just kind of hit me up out of the blue and it's like, would you like to do a performance at this thing, with a bunch of other people? And I'm like, heck yes. That would be awesome. So for me, it's all about just finding ways to, like support people and, like help other people get their work in front of fans.
Yeah.
That's really important to me. And, honestly, one of the other things too is like everyone who I boost like online, it's like, it's all stuff I actually love myself. Like, I'll retweet whatever, but as far as like actual like boosting things, like I only talk about things I get really excited about, just because I want to be like authentic in that sense.
Oh yeah. You can't just promote anything, right? You have to legitimately want to be about it for sure. I definitely understand that.
Yeah.
So moving forward, I'm assuming these next 2 releases you have coming out with Mutated Meteor will also have, similar cover and look to them as well. Just have that united feel.
Yep, exactly. Yeah. So all 4 releases, there's kind of a different primary color, a different, strong central image, but they've got like, like similar title fonts, like the geometric designs are kind of tying all the different covers together. But yeah, each one is going to be very similar.
Yeah, that sounds great. Now, how, you also mentioned that you're working with the agent to also try to get your stuff on more prominent publishing levels. So how are you delineating there? Like what I'm going to hold for the agent, what I'm going to release for myself? Is there a method to that madness?
There is, yeah, and it's an extraordinarily simple one. Simply word count. So talking with my agent and figuring out like, okay, like how do we want to like try to move my career forward? So anything that's like novella length, she's like, you can go ahead and release that yourself, and get it out there. Anything that's novel length, I send to her. So she's now got 3 novels, that she's kind of shopping around.
Nice.
And we'll see what happens with that. But yeah, it's very easy. Strictly word count.
It's great to, not only see you putting out these things now rapidly, but then now you mentioned there's 3 novels also out there in the world. Like, I know for certain now you were not at all laying back, enjoying, counting up all that, I'm not even supposed to be here today money. You were putting in the work for sure. There's no doubt. Like, you see that payoff. I appreciate that too. Being a self-published guy and you do obviously worry about keeping stuff out there, remaining in the consciousness, while you also try to produce things as well. And personally, I've gone like the opposite route of like all self-published. Now I'm trying to, shop stuff to publishers. And I worried that, I've written 2 stories now that normally I wouldn't publish, but I'm holding them. And it's like, it's that struggle to like still let people know, hey man, I'm out there and everything. And even though you're not seeing anything, I promise you there will be stuff eventually, but I'm trying this different tactic. And I think that's where you excelled too during that quiet, that dormant year, whatever, that really wasn't dormant at all, but you you were constantly pushing, advertising, not even supposed to be here today. You got yourself attached to the Boinking Bizarro project, and you still remained relevant, which I really appreciate. Your tactics in keeping yourself out there during that period of downtime as far as output goes.
Yeah, thanks, man. Well, I really appreciate hearing that. Actually, that really makes my day hearing that. But yeah, it's like, for me, it's all about, like, I look at myself as like, I don't know, like, a lot of people are like, the word creative is like, like, as a creative as a noun is like kind of like, something that people shy away from. But like, honestly, man, like, I consider myself a creative because, like, I'm not just a prose writer. I do all kinds of different things.
Yeah.
Like, so during that kind of like, that year of not releasing anything in the indie scene other than, Boinking Bizarro, which I edited with, Danger Slater. So I wrote a couple comic book stories that got published in a comic book called Tales of Horrorgasm. And, you can actually go get that at horrorgasmsd.com. So those are out there. So I did a couple things like that. I've gotten a couple like film related things, that I'm doing as well. So actually funnily enough, I just got back from, a couple days in Las Vegas where I was meeting with a director, about a short that we're going to film in June. So we're going to try and, film in June, do, post-production in July and get it into film festivals in the fall. We're pretty excited about that.
You're a multiple threat. You've got everything going on that too. And I guess those are, using the mutated media thing, like you said, you can do a lot of things with that. It's not just this self-publishing thing that you have going on. I guess you can do a lot of work under that.
Yeah. So the name is, intentional. The media part of it,
yeah,
that's kind of intentional. So yeah, like with the couple, I actually have 2 different short films I'm developing right now. And then I'm also kind of producing a couple other ones, some under the Mutated Media banner. So it's just about kind of getting me out there as much as possible. And like, I just love creating things, man. So like, just like whatever platforms, whatever media are available to me, like, I'm going to dive into that and try and do something, as much as I can, and, it's one of those things where I don't want to spread myself too thin. So I am selective about what projects I get into, but I'm kind of finding ways to balance where I can go, okay, like, I wrote this script and now I can work with this person to produce it. Meanwhile, I have this, novella I'm still writing, yada, yada. And then, someone asked me to do a 5-page comic book script for this anthology, and I can just rock that out over the next 3 days and then be done,
Yeah, I mean, you're obviously a tireless workhorse, and we're really starting to see the fruits of all that labor, which is really, really great to see, and that you have this really robust body of work now that you can release and still have a lot behind it. It was like, you're building up the cash, as it were, to get to this point. And now we're starting to see, like, the real results of that, quiet period. And it's not just books, it's novellas, and there will be novels at some point, and all these other multimedia things. Of course, the comics, I knew you had that going on. And now like movies, videos, films, and all that stuff. It's pretty incredible to see, and I'm so happy for it too, because after I'm not even supposed to be here today, I was really like rooting for you. I'm like, I like this guy's work. It's a lot of fun, and it's not so serious. It's just my kind of stuff, and so I was like, ooh, I hope he's not going to be one of them one and done kind of guys. But I like I said, I always saw you out there like doing a hustle, and I'm like, there got to be more at some point here. And now I'm pretty excited to see it all coming to fruition now.
Oh, thanks, man. I really appreciate that. And, like I said, it's just weird. Like, as a writer, like, people see only a little bit, right? Like, it's like, I've been at this seriously since 2016. And I have like a million words in the trunk of stuff that's like not going to see the light of day necessarily. It's like, I've been working continuously for about 5 years now. at just like, writing short stories, novels, novellas, yada, yada. And now I'm finally getting to the point where like I have stuff that I'm confident enough in, that, I'm putting it out there more,
Yeah.
and, it's really exciting.
It's a great time to be Brian Asman.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you. I appreciate it.
So like, of course you said there's 2 more novellas yet to come this year. And some other film projects and stuff. Like, do you foresee into the next year and beyond continuing like with your mutated media novella releases, or were you gonna maybe hit that book deal and maybe chase that a little bit better? What do you see sort of your longer term future for you?
Oh, that's a great question. So I fully plan on landing a big 5 book deal that's worth 6 figures, or 7 figures actually. And then having, the movie tie-in deal, yada, yada. Like, that's my plan. But just kidding. So yeah,
that should be your plan.
I'm always going to pursue, like, I always feel like take the biggest swing possible, and so there will always be things that I kind of like, go, okay, I'm pushing for that. At the same time, yeah, I'm going to continue releasing stuff with mutated media. I think probably next year I will probably dial it back a little bit. So this year was kind of more about, it's weird to say, but it's almost like a catch up year where I had all this like pent up creative stuff that I just want to get out there, no matter what. I'm thinking next year I might kind of dial back the speed a little bit and focus on 1 to 2 novella releases through mutated media, and then whatever else I can get involved with or do. And then kind of like spend a little more time promoting things, because that's my one Achilles heel, man. Is just the I don't really like the promotion part, honestly, which not a lot of people do. But yeah, I would rather just like write and give it to someone else and be like, okay, go promote this. But that's not realistic, obviously. So
no. Well, hopefully, I mean, you must shine out there. Conventions, like you said, are hit or miss, but you must shine out there on the convention circuit doing those things. So I'm sure you're looking forward to being able to get back out there. Hopefully, dear God, please soon enough.
Oh my God. Yeah, dude. I cannot wait, to get back to conventions. I'm halfway vaccinated right now.
Yep.
So I'm getting my next shot in a couple of weeks. And then after that, I'll be good. I'm hoping that as the pace of vaccination picks up, we'll see a couple more, in-person events actually be able to happen. I know right now, actually, I might be coming to Jersey at the end of the summer for Evil Expo. I don't know if you've ever been to that one or heard of it.
I've heard of it. I have not been to it, so that sounds pretty cool.
Yeah, that's kind of like on my list of possible conventions for this year. But yeah, once they start having in-person events, I'm going to be at every possible convention I can with the table. Probably rocking some Misfits or something like that, like on the boombox, and just kind of talking to people and slinging books and having a good time,
Sounds great. And you're not like you're ready to do the whole tour thing, like hit the whole U.S. Where's there going to be a convention? Get my ass over there.
Yeah, exactly. Like, luckily I'm in Southern California, so there's like a lot of stuff within a close distance of me, but like, I'm down to go wherever, it's, real easy to get get to the Midwest or, get to the East Coast for a weekend or something like that, and I have family all over. So
that's
it's
great.
just one of those,
Yeah, that's a good opportunity if you're able to do it, obviously slinging books, because, that's the sort of thing I struggle with. I can do all these conventions and stuff, but it's sort of regionally, I can't get away too often, too far to give it that time necessarily to jet set around all year long. So it's a frustration. It's important to get out there in front of people and do that, but it's also like, no, it's just like I'm here in this little cluster area, and it would be great if I could get down to Texas or out to Chicago or out to Vegas and California. That would be just even more benefit. So that you have the liberty to do that is really great.
Yeah, I'm very lucky in a lot of ways, that I have the kind of job flexibility where I can get time off and, have some funds to travel with and stuff like that. But, I really think, I've listened to a lot of people like Brian Keene talk about it, how they, they built their entire career by being on the road and going to cons,
Yep.
I look at people like, like John Wayne Kaminali, who's at like literally every convention, it seems.
It does seem that way.
And, I'm like, yeah, that's what I want to do, is get out there, be at a table, talk to people and, just kind of like, it's that repetition, man. That's what I'm finding as, like an indie/hybrid writer. Is people have to keep encountering you and know that you're not going away. You're not, like you said, not just a one and done,
Yeah.
That you're you're someone who can continue entertaining them for a while and that you're worth it,
That's true. Well, now all you can do is really hope for that. Like you said, just get that 6-figure book deal and really just have them jet set you around, have a whole touring budget all behind you. It's just like, show up here, here's the money, and you take it and run and just live that Playboy lifestyle that obviously you will hit within 3 years, I would think.
Yeah. I mean, that's obviously the dream, but at the same time, like the thing is like, like dreams don't come out of nowhere. There are ways to achieve dreams. And for, as far as signing a big, a big 5 deal or something like that, that's why I'm working so hard right now to try and build a platform on my own.
Yeah.
Because, if they have the choice between my book and another book, but that writer doesn't have as much of a platform, then
it's your book.
It's my book. Right. So, and that's kind of what I'm seeing in publishing in general right now is they want to find people that are commodities. They want to find people with ready-made platforms, that can promote their book. So that's what I'm trying to be ready when the opportunity comes. And not just wait for the opportunity to come to me.
I mean, that's a great game plan. You can't argue with that. You got a business plan for sure. And I'm definitely looking forward to seeing hopefully success out of you. But even if that success is self-built success and you can't lean on the big 5 for that, is there a sort of contingency? I'd hate to break the bubble, but is there a timeline where you're going to sell these or wait for these books to sell or not? Is it going to be a year? Is it going to be 2 years? Are you just going to let it ride? What are you going to do with these novels if they're not selling in a certain frame of time?
That's a good question. And it's, for me, I'm just letting it ride right now and, trusting my agent. She's the expert. She's been in the business for 25 years or so.
Yeah.
So I'm placing my trust in her, right now. And I just know, if you look at, say, Paul Tremblay, for example, he scored a book deal, way back for, what is it, the big bounce and the big sleep or something. He had 2 crime novels.
Yeah.
That he scored a deal for, they came out, but they didn't set the world on fire.
Right.
And then he kind of went back, hunkered down and, came up with, a head full of ghosts.
Yeah.
Which hit huge. And ever since he's become one of the biggest names in horror. Dude, I can walk down to my fucking CVS and buy a Paul Tremblay book, at my CVS right now,
Yeah.
So I kind of look at it like that. I am in this as a long game, right? Where what I want to do is tell stories. And so, if the novels don't sell right away, fine. That's why I'm doing the mutated media thing. That's why I'm doing stuff with film and comics. I've got my outlets and I can be patient. And the other thing that I think is really important too is that I really strongly consider, success is something that you can define for yourself. That's one of the greatest things about the idea of success, right? So years ago, 2016, 2017, right? I kind of linked up with a whole bunch of people through, This Is Horror, the horror podcast.
Yep.
Right. Which I'm sure you're familiar with.
Of course.
Yeah. And they were doing this, the story a week challenge. Where, they were okay, in 2017, write a story a week. And they created this Slack channel. And there were a whole bunch of people on the Slack channel who were all kind of working together, pushing each other, to write a story a week. And so I became involved with that group and I met a ton of great people through that. And, I look back now and go, you know what? All the people that I linked up with in 2017 have achieved some sort of success, right? Whether that's just publishing a single short story or publishing a couple book reviews, with a well-known website or things like that. like, or publishing a novel, getting a book deal, yada, yada. Like everyone has achieved a little bit of success. And so for me, it's important to kind of define success. Like I get to define that. I don't have to compare myself to anyone else, and I don't have to feel like a failure as long as I know that I'm putting everything I can into what I do.
That is the perfect answer. And you know, that's, you know, you clearly have a plan. I love that you say, like, I'm going to let those novels ride. They are there to get picked up for Big Five and for no other, you know, intention at this point in time. So they can take forever, and you've got backup for and other plans and layers. And, you know, like you said, that's the success isn't just going to come. I love, there's a picture, I make my own luck, a 4-leaf clover where the fourth leaf is just taped on. I'm making up my own luck. I'm doing this, you know, I'm not waiting for it to come to me.
Yeah.
I'm going to work towards it coming to me. I definitely 100% agree with that philosophy. So, you know, I have no reason not to believe you won't make it one day, you know, on your own terms, because that's the key to success as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, thanks, man. I really appreciate that. And I you know, I love that imagery of the clover and like, you know, the one leaf taped on, because that's definitely, you know, that's definitely how I feel. And, you know, it's really easy just to see success when you're like, I don't like the term aspiring writer, because if you write, you're a writer. Yeah. But like when you're aspiring to a professional career as a writer, it's really easy to look at someone who's like, oh my God, this person's 28 and they just got a book deal on yada yada. But like, it's impossible to see the work that anyone has put into their career to get to where they are. So that's why I really like the Paul Tremblay story, for example. Yeah. You know, where it's like a lot, like I would imagine like most people now who pick up, you know, Cabin at the End of the World or, you know, Survivor Song, whatever, they probably don't know that he had a couple books come out years ago that weren't, you know, again, didn't set the world on fire, and that he had to kind of go back and like, take another swing at things, you know, and become who he is today. So I find people like him, you know, and like Stephen Graham Jones, who's like, grinded out like a 25-year career as a writer, you know, and now with like, you know, The Only Good Indians and his upcoming book, My Heart is a Chainsaw, which I just got to read. It's fucking fantastic, by the way. Okay. But you know, like, you know, those guys, like, you know, they put in their dues, you know, and everyone in one way or the other usually puts in their dues, even if you as an observer can't see it.
Yeah, that's 1,000,000% correct. So I completely and totally agree with that. Brian Asman, as always, it's been a pleasure having you here on the show. I'm really, really happy that we've been able to have a very robust conversation, because the robustness of your labor is coming to fruition here. We've had a lot to talk about. It's been a great, inspirational conversation, if you ask me. Please, in the future, the more you get, you know, popular, don't hesitate. You know, don't forget about little Bizzong back here when you get that big 6-figure deal. But until then, we'll be checking out all your latest work, however it's released. Thank you for joining us here on Bizzong this week.
Hey, Mr. Frank, thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Brian Asman, Zongers. He's a little bit to me like the turtle from Finding Nemo, Crash, only like a little more coked up or something like that. He's got a little more energy to him than Crash, but very cool, laid back dude. And he writes some really freaking fun books. So I definitely recommend you check out Jailbroke and Nunchuck City. Nunchuck City specifically, get that pre-ordered, man. I want this guy to get tattooed and have his name changed. That would be awesome as hell. Whatever you do, just make sure you check out some of Brian Asman's work. Zongers, as always, I love that you listen. I love that you tune in time after time. And I definitely welcome aboard those checking out Bizzong through Godless Horror's YouTube channel. Bizzong and Godless have been the dream team lately. Love working with Godless and Drew Stepik, getting Bizzong out there, sharing awesome creative work in like the underground, coming up, bubbling up to the overground. So make sure you're checking out everything going on at godless.com. It's a multimedia platform where you can get books, you can check out audio books, and of course, you can stream all the cool badass shit going on the Godless Horrors YouTube channel, which you know about already if that's how you're hearing this podcast. But that's all I've got for you fine Zongers this week. Make sure you tune in again next week and every week thereafter, where we're bringing you the best in weird and wild wacky fiction. And until then, you are free to go and listen to these other great Project Entertainment Network podcasts.
Welcome to Wild Speculation, a podcast where each episode is a short story that explores one of the many strange, wonderful, and sometimes disturbing worlds of speculative fiction. You can find us at wildspeculation.buzzsprout.com, on the Project Entertainment Network, and wherever else you find podcasts. So sit back, enjoy the story, and let your imagination run wild.
Jason A. Meiske here, and I invite you to join me each Tuesday on the Sample Chapter Podcast, the show where authors from all over the world read a sample chapter from one of their books. There's been sci-fi, westerns, horror, romance, thrillers, and even the weird, so you're sure to find your next favorite book every Tuesday on the Sample Chapter Podcast.
This has been a presentation of the Project Entertainment Network.